Hello everyone, my name is Carlos Contreras, and before we get started with our topic, which is very controversial, I would like to introduce my group members. First, Jonah Perez will be speaking about famous cases. Second, Dusty Vance will be speaking about types of misconduct. And third, Michelle Cyphers will be speaking about solutions. And to conclude with their speech will be Alex Miller. Our group decided to choose police brutality as our topic. The definition of police brutality is a form of police misconduct in which officers engage in excessive use of force. The definition of excessive use of force is a bit fluid, but is generally taken to mean force well beyond what would be necessary to cope with situations. For example, a police officer who beats a non-violent protester would probably be accused of excessive use of force, under the argument that the officer could have dealt with the situations much less violently. Policemen, the administrators of justice, the keepers of law, are spread out across the whole entire world. Every country, every major city, and most small towns depend on them to keep order with the vicinity. They are the people we all trust with our lives and look to when things are going wrong. Yet, every so often, these trusted officials break the bond held between citizens and themselves. Acts of violence blemish their image and oftentimes cause huge media frenzies. Dating back to the creators of law and order, police brutality has been prevalent throughout the country. Police brutality could come upon anybody, even underserving citizens. The problem with police brutality are that it violates the rights of citizens of the United States. Policemen too often get away with it, and it creates a negative connotation for the police force. And now our speech will continue with Jonah. He will be speaking about famous cases, and after Jonah will be Dusty Vance speaking about types of misconduct, and Michelle Cyphers will speak about solutions. And Alex Miller will conclude her speech.
I hope you guys liked our introduction. Police brutality has always been remembered since their installment into the criminal justice system. And many events have and will always be remembered. I'm not trying to say that our police system is corrupt, but there are a few who take advantage of their powers as an officer and abuse them to think they're trying to protect us. When cases are brought to the attention of the court, very many take it to the court, and the ones that are put on a national stand for everyone to see and listen. One of those famous cases to me that stands out the most would have to be the arrest on Rodney King in 1991. When he was pulled over after a high-speed chase, the reason he ran was because he was on parole, and knowing that if he would got pulled over and being out of his time, he would probably be beaten and arrested. So he kept driving till he hit a public place, which was in front of these apartments. When he was pulled over, he was taken out of his car and pretty much beaten while an amateur cameraman recorded it as it went on. In this case, I mean, went national, and it cost one of the biggest riots in the U.S. history, which many of y'all probably know, the LA riots. And the damage came to, pretty damaging, $1.3 million, actually $1 billion. The next case that stands out to me would have to be the the case on Auburn Lumina, who was beaten by two officers in a police station on August 9th, 1997. The case was taken to trial, and the two officers were admitted to the deed, and one was sentenced to 30 years in prison, while the others were sentenced to 5 in the ordeal. Auburn won the case, and he won a settlement of close to $8.7 million. And this case has changed the way New Yorkers think of their police department. Police brutality hasn't always been brought up it has always been brought up since the Civil Rights Movement, and you can tell by actual footage and stuff that, police did cross the line, and, there are many things that we think that we should do in ways that, we can prevent this from happening in the future. Just better practice with our law enforcement and better tactics on protecting us, I guess. Thank you.
There are many types of misconduct and brutality in the world, and the people that we entrust to enforce the law as officers are not immune to these. After all, they are humans just like us. The definition of brutality is the state or quality of being ruthless, cruel, harsh, or unrelenting. When most people think of the word brutality, they almost always think of the word police. Now, there are some famous cases of police brutality, one that we looked at earlier being the Rodney King incident, but there are more cases out there of police brutality, and some even extending into the present day of today, believe it or not. One of those cases being police in the state of Connecticut are going to trial in the year 2013, next year. These officers, being described as bullies with badges, were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit racial profiling and using threats and intimidation. They are accused of routinely injuring, threatening, and intimidating Hispanic citizens in their community with false arrests, false reports, and harassment. Another case from earlier this year involves the Oakland Police Department. Earlier this year, they were subjected to court-ordered external monitoring after review and receiving more than 1,000 misconduct complaints during the Occupy Oakland group protesting economic inequality within the U.S. They were subjected to the court-ordered external monitoring, also stemming from a case from back in 2003, which they recently settled. And in this case, the officers were accused of planting evidence, fabricating police reports, and using unlawful force. Also this year, New Orleans police officers were sentenced to prison, ranging from prison sentences of 35 years to 68 years each after being convicted of shooting unarmed people after the Hurricane Katrina incident. When it comes to police brutality, it is always accompanied with misconduct. As we've seen, brutality can come in the forms of bullying or harassment, use of excessive force, beatings, and even killing. This usually leads to the misconduct of planting evidence, fabricating police reports, and conspiring to cover up the truth. So next, we'll go to our next group member, Michelle, who will give us some insight on hopefully some solutions to these problems.
Since we've discussed famous cases and types of police brutality, next we're going to discuss what can be done to decrease or stop police brutality. Some police precincts, such as in Madison, Wisconsin, with the help of mental health advocates, have instated 50 hours of crisis management training for new recruits. This is a quote: "The more information officers have up front, the more it will assist them in how they are able to respond to any situation." This was said by Lieutenant Christian Roman, who is organizing the training. Every officer will receive this training as a refresher course during their in-service training sessions. In Oklahoma, police recruits will have to receive extensive training and must receive a certification from the Council of Law Enforcement, Education, and Training. With the CLEAT, the training will increase from 375 hours to 600 hours. All law enforcement officers in the state must now have a CLEAT certification. The downside to the additional training is that training requirements will be contingent on the funding if it's available. This may also create problems for smaller county police departments. Cities such as Chicago have instituted civilian oversight boards. The boards will review police misconduct. The goal of the board is to hold the police department accountable and to help strengthen those who are likely to be victims of police brutality, such as minorities, the poor, and the young. Another way to reduce police brutality is with the corporation of police corps. Police corps will offer monetary incentives for minorities, the poor, and young adults to receive an education and the ability to join the police force. The belief is that with a larger group of those representatives who are likely to be targets of police brutality will decrease the mindset for the need of excessive force. Some critics have suggested the use of an independent auditor so that questioned behavior may be made public. Another suggestion made by critics is that a decertification, such as lawyers are disbarred, should be in place for officers who have been removed from a precinct due to misconduct. This way, the officer will not be able to get hired at another precinct in a different district. Finally, things that can be incorporated to decrease police brutality, this is a recap, include increased training hours for new recruits and current officers, having officers have a certification for increased training hours, incorporating civilian oversight boards, the incorporation of police corps, independent auditors, and decertification for officers who have been fired for misconduct.
In conclusion, police brutality and corruption are serious growing issues that are plaguing America today. According to the 2010 NPM SRP reports, there were 4,861 unique reports of police misconduct tracked, with 6,613 law enforcement officers being involved, 354 of whom were agency leaders such as chiefs or sheriffs. There were 6,826 alleged victims involved and 247 fatalities associated with the tracked reports. In addition, $346,512,800 were spent on misconduct-related civil judgments and settlements, excluding sealed settlements, court costs, and attorney fees. Of the 6,613 law enforcement officers involved in the reported allegations of misconduct that met the NPM SRP criteria for tracking purposes, 1,575 were involved in excessive force reports, which are the most prominent type of report at 23.8% of all reports. This was followed by sexual misconduct complaints at 9.3% of officers reported, then theft or fraud or robbery allegations involving 7.2% of all officers reported. Police brutality is an abuse of power by authority, and it comes in many forms, such as sexual harassment, use of excessive force, beatings, and on occasion, killing. This in turn can lead to the misconduct of planting evidence and fabricating police reports in an effort to cover up the truth. There are also many infamous cases of police brutality, one such case being that of Rodney King, an African-American construction worker who was beaten mercilessly by several policemen. Said beating was recorded, and after 4 of the policemen guilty of excessive force were tried, they were all given an acquittal. This, in turn, led to the 1992 Los Angeles riots, which caused the death of 53 people, resulted in injuries to over 2,000 others, and costed over $1 billion in damage. The riots required intervention from both the National Guard and the Marines in order to quell them, and led to the eventual imprisonment of 2 of the officers responsible for the entire controversy. Despite the strife it causes, police brutality can be stopped and prevented. Knowing your rights as a civilian is a good start, as even cops are subject to the law. Recording and then reporting instances of police brutality is another way to put a stop to it. This can also help as to provide you with evidence if you choose to press charges. Finally, there is always protest, as all it takes is a small group of people to make a very large difference. Thank you.
I know I threw in some pins in here, so I'm gonna go right with.
I'm not trying to say that all police officers are corrupt. Oh, go ahead, start over again.
Hello everyone, my name is Carlos Contreras.
Since we've already discussed types of, I already messed up. Now that we discussed, no, sorry, since we've already discussed about I'm not gonna be able to do this on the video. Or stop. Police brutality. I touched him. And I was doing good. He's grinning at me. Stop! And I'm tired.